What did we say last time? We said that Tzion b'mishpat teparev v'tzaveh v'tzedakah. That's this week's Haftorah, and it talks about that there is hope for the Jewish people, and that Tzion, which is the Jewish people or Israel, will be redeemed with charity, will be redeemed with in law, and her prisoners will be redeemed with charity. Now, what does exactly this mean? What does it mean to us? What does it mean? What are we supposed to do? So the Rebbe said, all right, let's understand first of all what it means that the Jewish people were redeemed with mishpat. Mishpat means the Torah. The only way that the Jewish people will be redeemed is through the Torah. Without the Torah, we're like everybody else. And maybe you can say, okay, so, we'll be like everybody else. And, we won't have so many destructions and expulsions and things like that. But everybody else, they've all disappeared, all the Romans and the Babylonians, and here the Jews are still here. So you can say, okay, so what's the point of them being here? What's the job? So what's the purpose? So the answer to that is why exactly are the Jewish people here? What's the whole purpose of the Jewish people? Why are they here? Why are they eternal? Why aren't the Mexicans eternal, or the Babylonians eternal, or the whatever it is, the Amorites and all these other nations, Assyrians, right? Have you ever seen any Assyrians walking around the street? What's an Assyrian? What does it mean? Romans. So why are the Jews here? What's the whole purpose? So the Rebbe says why the Jews are here is in order to make the world into a perfect place. To make the world into a perfect place. And that the only way they can do that is by mishpat. Mishpat is the Torah. So the Rebbe said, by the Torah, that's our hope, but the problem is that Torah has to be learned properly. It has to be learned with the proper attitude. With the proper attitude. What's the proper attitude? It has to be brand new in your eyes every day. So the Rebbe says, how can the Torah be brand new in our eyes? We're just human beings. What does it mean it should be brand new in our eyes? It's enough if anybody even learns it at all. Well, you're making all sorts of stipulations. It has to be learned in the proper way. It's just amazing if anybody picks up the Torah and learns it at all. It's just what is there to learn? So the Rebbe said, well, the fact is that the Torah is the will and the wisdom of the Creator. If anything in the world is important to you, you have a dog, you have a house, you have a car, you have a motorcycle, you have a something that you like in the world. Right? Most people have something they like. Even if you like to be miserable, there's something people like to complain. There's something everybody likes. If you like that thing, and that's real to you, so how much more so you should like God? Because God is creating that thing. He's creating everything. He's creating you. So the Rebbe said, let's get into this now. Let's get to really feel that Hashem, God, is really creating you and everything else. And then you can start appreciating the Torah and learning the Torah properly. So if you remember, we learned yesterday that the whole world is being created all the time. This is a constant topic here in Likuti Torah. It's a constant in this book. To have a feeling of the reality of God. In other words, that God is not some sort of a being, a religious character, or a biblical figure. That God is really creating us, and He's creating all reality constantly. To actually feel this, that's the beginning of really serving God. You know who you're serving. So it says, God is creating the whole world all the time, and He fills everything, every detail in the world is all different, and He's creating every single person, every single animal, every single plant, every single rock. So, but then there's even a higher level of godliness, and that's what's called how God surrounds all the world. It says this whole business is called Yesh Mi'ayin. The whole world seems to be really real, and it's really being created from absolute nothing. So why is it we call God nothing? Is because we can't perceive of it. God is so real, and we are so unreal. I mean, we're just being created that it's beyond our comprehension and beyond our feeling, and it just defies normal common sense that we're being created. You just don't feel it. Nobody feels it. So if so, how do we get to this? That's this thing of faith and and what's called hoda'ah, surrender. Surrender. We have to surrender what we think and what we feel to the truth, or what the tzaddikim feel and what they. We have to surrender ourselves to the truth. The truth is that we are really being created. Do you feel it? No. Well, do you think it could be true? Are the big tzaddikim, are they fooling you? Maybe, could be, right? But maybe not. And this thing about the maybe we're not being fooled, maybe God really is creating us. This is the essence of Judaism, was been keeping the Jews in existence for so long. That really, in fact, there is God, and He really does care, and He really is creating us. So that is faith. But that's not enough. You also have to have a blessing. Just to have faith in God, that's great. But there also has to be a blessing. So it says, and that blessing comes by means of the Torah. That is Hainu of a bracha. That's called Hodah, Avol bracha, but the idea of making a blessing, that's like being a partner with God. This means that you reveal God. Like it says, Yishmael bani borcheni, right in the beginning of the Gemara in Brachas. It says that when Yishmael, Kohen Gadol, when he was the high priest, when he went into the holy temple, that sometimes he would hear a voice coming out and saying, Yishmael, my son, bless me. What does it mean, bless me? What, God needs a blessing? It says, no, bless me means to bring God into the world, reveal. Kach Baruch Hashem mina olam v'ad olam. That's what it means, a blessing. The word blessing, Baruch, means to draw godliness down from being spiritual into being real, to being into the physical world. Because in the end, the spiritual and the physical are just creations, but the spiritual conceals God. And the physical world conceals Him even more. So we want to draw God, that He'll be revealed not only in the spiritual worlds, but also in the physical world. That's the idea of the Torah. That makes a blessing, mina olam v'ad olam, from one world to the next. Shenimshach me'olam deskasya, that godliness, the revelation of the truth of the Creator, the goodness, the love, the infinite reality of the Creator is drawn from being concealed to be revealed. Hainu, how? By means of this, how do we reveal God in the world? How? Al yadei v'hayu advorim me'elo asher anuchim etzavech hayom. By the words of the Torah, because of the words of the Torah, God is actually saying them right now. She'al yadei mitzvot, and Torah, by means of doing the commandments and saying the words of Torah and thinking about the words of Torah, Mamshichim, we draw it down. And Gilui b'nefesh, it is revealed in the soul. Ayin Mashkadu, look what it says in Sifri, it's in one of the Midrashim, that because of this you can recognize the one who created the world with the Torah. Now what happens when God is revealed in the world? What do we exactly see when God is revealed in the world? I mean, first of all, we don't see anything that's a creation. We don't see like this big bright light or something, or a cloud, or everybody's faces is shining or something. What we feel, the truth. It's the truth. Like, for instance, to take an example, a person who's sick and he gets better. So you say, how do you feel? He says, I feel really great. Ask him in another few days, how do you feel? If he remembers back to when he was sick, he says, wow, I feel a lot better than I did last week. Ask him the next year, how do you feel now? Right? Just ask a regular person in the street, I feel okay. But don't you realize you could have been sick? What are you, nuts? What do you mean I could have been sick? Who are you talking to? Right? A person is naturally feels good. He can just be himself. Well, that's the whole idea of at least basically the revelation of God. You just feel healthy. You feel yourself. You feel you can reveal new potential. Right? What's the difference between a sick person and a well person? A sick person has all this potential and he can't reveal it. He can't walk, he can't talk, he can't move, he can't eat, he can't think, he can't this. Right? As soon as a person becomes well, he becomes human. He can just reveal himself. He can reveal empathy and love and meaning, and he can get things done. So in other words, the whole idea of the revelation of God means it makes the world healthy. When we learn the Torah, it makes the world more healthy. Maybe we don't feel it, we don't notice it, but that's the fact. Make the world healthy. And it's a type of a thing that you get angry less, and there's less confusion in the world, but it's just a natural thing, so you don't necessarily feel it as such. This is when they went to the Holy Temple, they would come back feeling happy, moadim l'simcha. Look what it says in Divrei Masav Yada, etc., etc., etc. Mitchila, but first of all, you have to have love. We did this yesterday. That by means of this love, afterward, in Shmona Esrei, then you can make the blessings. So first of all, there has to be faith and giving thanks and surrender to God. Then after that, there's a little bit of an appreciation, loving God, appreciating God, having a feeling, being, how do you say, connected in a more intimate, personal way to God. And then after that, you can make blessings. That's the Shmona Esrei blessings. Baruch atah Hashem, hainu shebein bechinat hodah, that between this level of just being surrendered to God and believing in God, and to this third level, that's the first level, the beginning, and to the third level that you can actually be partners with God and draw God into the world by Torah, what connects these two things together is love. Hine, behold, kedei, in order, sheyavol yidei zchinas, in order to come to this level of love, to love God, genuinely love God, who it is, al yidei his bonus, by means of thinking deeply. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto L'Olam V'Od, by thinking that God, listen. The word Shema means listen, means to think deeply, Jews. And then after that, we say, Baruch Shem is blessed. We said blessed means to be drawn down, to draw down the name of the glory of his kingship forever and ever. What's this mean? Now we're talking about getting serious about the creator of the universe. Perush, what does it mean? We want to get love of God. Perush, ki hine habriya hu yesh me'ayin. The creation is something from nothing. Perush, kamosh katuv, like it says, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto L'Olam V'Od. That's what we say. Blessed is the name of the glory of the kingship forever and ever. We say this right after you say Shema Yisrael. They insert this little sentence. Shebechinas Malchuto, this aspect of God's kingship, Mashiach Melech Aleim, that which God has called the king over the whole universe. She'enu bechinas atzmios. This is not the essence of God. Who this is a mahave kol olamot. This, that God is the king of the world, this is what creates the worlds. Olamot elyonim, this creates the upper worlds. Let's start off with the upper worlds first. That's God's kingship. The upper worlds, they want God to be their king. That's called God's malchut. Malchutcha, malchut kolamim, umemshaltecha. Memshaltecha means dictatorship. Who it is, lamata below mi b'chinet malchut. This is lower than being a king. Shehu moshel ba'al korcho, that he rules against everyone's will. Shalol letovatam, even not to their benefit. At least that's what they think. Behu chitzoni admirat malchut. This is the external of God's kingship. Okay, it's a little bit difficult for us to understand what a king is, but it's a very interesting thing. For instance, in England, right? England. So England has a king, and they revere the king. The king is basically revered. There's always people that stand up and say, let's not revere the king. You know, the king is like everybody else. We're wasting a lot of money. But nevertheless, the king is revered. Why is the king revered? Why? What's the idea? Because, not necessarily because of the personality, what it is, just the idea that there has to be a king. A king is somebody that everybody wants. Everybody knows that the king has the best interest of the subjects in a way that nobody else does. It could be that the king will do things that nobody else wants to do, or even that wants to have done. But that's what the people want. People want someone who can make the proper decisions. That's what they want. That's a king. A dictator is a person that everybody doesn't necessarily want him to be there. They're afraid of him. He took the power, and so that's it. No one's stronger than he is. He controls the army, he controls the whatever. So no one is stronger than he is. That's the idea of him. Well, the same thing is by God. By God, there's what's called God's kingship. That's a genuine leader. And then there's memshala. Memshala means ruling, not necessarily with everybody's will. And we're going to see what that means. Let's see what that means. This is the external of kingship. And kingship means there's one person that's different than everybody else, and he can rule. And memshala means there's one person that he's not necessarily different than everybody else, but he rules. He assumes the rulership. This level of what's called memshaltecha, this is called dor v'dor. Again, what do we say? It's in Ashrei. Malchutcha malchut kol amim. Your kingship is the kingship of all the worlds. That, says the Rebbe here, is talking about the upper worlds, the spiritual worlds. The God is a king. Umemshaltecha, and your dictatorship, b'chol dor v'dor. That's in every single generation. Sheyesh dorot, there are certain generations, shem rishoim, that they were evil, like the generation of the flood. Shelo kiblu ol malchuto, that they didn't want to accept the yoke of God, b'ratzon willfully. Afal pikein, nevertheless, nimshach lem chayus rab. Nevertheless, God enlivened them. Mibechinat mimshaltecha. That's this idea of God's dictatorship. Means that God enlivens them. Not that he forces. You see that God doesn't force anybody to do anything. Everybody can do whatever they want. Exactly the opposite. God gives life. That's what God is, life. God is the source of life, and he gives life to people who do what he wants, and the people who go against what he wants. That God gives life to the people that do what he wants, that's called God being a king. Baruch atah melech olam. We're supposed to say it 100 times a day. Religious Jews are supposed to say 100 times a day a blessing. They're supposed to bless after eating, and bless when they do a commandment, and bless in of the prayers, and 100 blessing. That's what we just finished saying. That's making God a king, revealing God's life force in the world with God's will, that we want God and God wants us. That's kingship. But then there's also, God also enlivens evil people, and that's called memshala. That God enlivens them against his will even. They go against him and he still enlivens them. They don't want anything to do with God, and he still keeps them alive. Hine, kol olamos, all the worlds, elyonim, the upper worlds, gan eden atachton, which is called the lower heaven, shu tainug nifl, which is a tremendous pleasure. We talked about that previously. This is a greater pleasure, mi olam hazem, ad shomer zal, until the rabbis say, mutav l'dayeni, kuli v'gan eden elyon. The rabbi said that it was worthwhile. We talked about this. That it says, Elisha ben Avua, it was better that he should go down to hell and suffer the incredible pain of hell for however long. It says that one instant in hell is like 70 years of the pain and emotional and physical pain that Job experienced. 70 years. It says it's worthwhile to experience that in order to just go up to heaven for even a minute. The Eish Od Alios, and there's no end. Kulam, all of them, nishavu, only from God's kingship. Lochen, therefore, nikra habrios yesh me'ayin. That's why the creations are called something from nothing. Ki hisavos and nivroim, because the creations, their existence, hu mibechinas shehu ka'ayin ve'efes. It's from a level that, two reasons. Number one, the creation of everything comes from a level that they can't understand, so it's called ayin. But the fact of the matter is that the creations, the force that creates the world, God creates the world through what's called his kingship. And this aspect of God's kingship is nothing compared to the essence of God. So therefore the world is created something. The world seems to be something, but really if we could see the source of the world, we realize that even the source of the world is really nothing in comparison to the essence of God. That's just a ray, Yisbreh. Hu bechinas midas malchuso. That's God's kingship. That's what we say after Shema Yisrael. Bruch shem kavod malchuto. The kingship of God is just like a ray, and that's the source of all of the upper worlds and the lower worlds. That kingship of God is like nothing compared to the essence of God. That's why the world is called something. To us seems to be something. And it comes from nothing. In other words, even its source is nothing. How much more so we're nothing? Like it says, look in Parshas Re'eh, according to Acharei. Okay, Gam also Zos einu mitlabeshes betochenu. Even that God creates the world from this very low level, which is called His kingship. We don't even appreciate that. Rak Omer Aleinu, it's just above us, Milamayla from above, in a way of Makif. It's surrounding. We have to believe that God is the king. We have to believe that God is the king. And that God is the king, that's a level which is infinitely nothing compared to the essence of God. There's another Maimer, Kamashal, like the example of a king. Asher Shamo, Nikra Aleim, like the king's name goes all over the kingdom. Right? All of a sudden there comes in a proclamation from the king. Ooh, everybody shakes. A proclamation from the king. Right? The king has the power. He can wipe out a whole city. He can do anything he wants to. At the proclamation of the king. From now on, everyone in New York moves to Atlanta, Georgia. That's it. The king says you do it, you do it. We're making all of New York into a big ice skating rink. If the king says, that's what it is. Right? That's what it's going to be. You have to move everybody. The king, you get a proclamation but the king doesn't come himself and make this proclamation. A king just orders. His name is written on the proclamation. The name, the proclamation is nothing. What's the proclamation? It's a piece of paper. But you see the king's signature. Ooh, everybody shakes. Says the Rebbe, the same thing as the world. The whole world is being created by the name of God. Baruch Shem Kavod, the name of the glory of God. That's what's really creating the world. Behold, kol zehu mitzad seder ishtalshlus. All of this that we say, that we are infinitely, infinitely distant from the creative force that creates the world. And that creative force that creates the world is infinitely, infinitely distant from the essence of God, infinitely distant. It says all of this is in the whole order of creation. His avus olamus. Avobad, ba'olam hazeh, all that's talking about the upper worlds. But the actual physicality of this world. Al yedei tshuva maisim tovim, when a Jewish person returns to the Creator and does what the Creator wants, he does the commandments, yochel lahamshich gilui atzmos, you can draw down the essence of God, mamish, really. So the whole thing, in other words, the whole thing it turns around. But odzos, and even more, yasim alibo, you can take to heart she'ba'olam haba, that in the world to come, i'afshar lalot rak b'hadargat kafakela. It's after a person dies, right? So he goes to heaven, right? This is not so simple. Before you go to heaven, there's all these processes you have to go through. What's called the slingshot. You have to go through hell. Then you can go through the lower heaven. Then there's what's called a river of fire. Then you can come to the upper heaven. And there's all these levels that a soul has to go through in order to completely lose its identity, its false identity that it had when it was in this world. Kamishpat haroy lefi shehu mibechinas mamale. It says because the soul as itself, right, in the heavens, that's all these spiritual levels, and one comes after the other. But in this physical world, in the spiritual worlds, you can't go to one level unless you purified yourself. You've been purified. God does the whole thing, of course. It's like a car wash, right? The car wash. A person dies, that's it. You have no choice anymore. The soul goes through all these things according to what a person did in the world. And it gets cleaned off from here, and sometimes there's bigger stains and smaller stains. You have to do this, and the person gets purified and clean and thrashed around, and all these weird things that happen. The worms eat the person up. All these things happen in order to get the person shaken off the connection that he had to this world. But it's a gradual process in the spiritual world. That's the spiritual world. But in this physical world, a person can jump and purify himself in 1 second from one end to the other, miyad, immediately. Karega. Ad shiladina hamikdash. I'm sorry. Ad shiladina, that the law is hamakadesh et isha, a person that marries a woman, almanat, on the condition. He says to the woman, he gives her a ring or money or something, and he says, you are married to me, but I'm making a condition. You are married to me on the condition that I am a total tzaddik. I am a totally righteous person. Right? They say, oh, Mazel Tov, everyone. Someone comes over to the bride and says, do you know who this person is that he's marrying you? No, I don't know. This person is one of the biggest sinners you cannot possibly imagine. He's the head of the mafia. Terrible things this person did. Don't be so happy. You're not married. He married you on condition, right? If someone marries a woman on the condition that he has $1 million in the bank, and he has nothing in the bank, so he's not married. If he marries a woman on the condition that he's the smartest man in Israel, and he ends up to be totally a dunce, he's not married. But if he marries a woman on the condition that he's a tzaddik, and everybody says, what are you talking about? He's a Russia. So go to the rabbi, and they say, Rabbi, what are we going to do? He says, he's married. She's married. Why is she married? It says, Mekudesha, she's married. Some say she's only married from a doubt. Why? Afiluhu Russia Gomer, even if they find out he really is evil, right in the middle of the wedding, they check his cellular phone and he's getting all these phone calls from, the criminals and terrible people. Why? Shemer Hiru Tshuva. Because maybe at the time of the wedding, maybe he had a thought of returning back to God. What does this mean? It means that in 1 second, a person can change himself totally. It could be that he went back again, right? He relapsed. But at that moment, when he made the condition, it could be that at that moment he was a tzaddik. In other words, it's possible for a person just by one thought to become a tzaddik. What's going to be the next moment? He has to work on it. Why is it in this world you can change yourself from one into the other? Because in this world, there's the essence of God. Soviv ka'omim. Because of this, it says that it's better one moment of tshuva, of returning to God and doing good deeds in this world than all of the world to come. You understand what that means? All of the world to come. We have absolutely no comprehension. V'zeo, that's what it means, mirov kol. And that's what it means that we're going to get to it soon. Parshas Kitavo, there's all these curses that await the Jews if they don't do what God wants. God has the option that he can do whatever he wants to the Jewish people because they owe him everything. And so it says, the reason you're getting all these terrible punishments is because you did not serve God with simcha ubetuv levav mirov kol. You didn't serve God happy with greater happiness and joy than having great abundance. The simple meaning is that God gave you great abundance, you should be happy. But the Arizal says no, that you should be happy, you should serve God and be happy in this world more than great abundance. Great abundance is referring to going to heaven. Zeo mirov kol, perish lamayla mi'olam hazeh. Boy, you should be happier serving God in this world than all of the upper worlds to come. No matter how much you explain and how much tremendous pleasure there is, that the upper worlds are called abundance. That's what they're called in Kabbalah, Ruv Kol, great abundance. That's the upper worlds, the spiritual worlds. Infinite pleasure says you should be happier serving God in this world than all of the upper worlds. And if you're not, God is worthy of punishment. Worthy of punishment. What do you mean worthy of punishment? You're not enjoying what you're doing. Right? You're not enjoying what you're doing. You're doing such an amazing thing. Right? Everybody wants the job to be the assistant to the king. You're assistant to the king. You're complaining. What are you complaining about? Everybody wants the job. There's 1 million people that would love to have this job. What are you complaining about? I want to be the king myself. I don't like to be told what to do. Right? Or even, no, I'm not complaining. I'm okay. But you see that the person's not happy. Here you're doing Torah. You're doing the commandments. You're serving the creator of the universe. This physical world is higher than all of the other worlds because here you can serve the Creator and you can turn everything around in 1 second. Here, God is being revealed. And therefore, when you think about this, then you'll have love with all of your heart. B'mesirut nefesh, even more with total devotion. V'lo mesirut haguf, not just doing what you're supposed to physically. Right? Whatever God wants, I'll do. What about feeling? Come on, leave me alone. I have my life for myself. It shouldn't be that way. It should be that you should really appreciate the Creator, really appreciate the Creator. there's a thing in the world, there's a multi-trillion, who knows how many trillion, quadrillion dollar industry, drama, movies, actors, right? People, they know how to act. There's people that are really good actors, right? They know how to act. They really know how to act, right? Like this person is their father and they love him and they cry when he dies. And the whole thing is just a big bluff. It's not so at all. But they're good actors. They're excellent actors. Fantastic. Everybody watches them cry because their father just got run over by a tractor or something. And he's crying and the whole crowd cries. And the fact of the matter is that his father didn't get run over by a tractor, and then all of the actors over there are earning $10 million for that scene, so they're tremendously happy, but they act sad. It's the same thing you can do Judaism. You can act. Okay, in a way, acting like that is better than not at all, but you have to understand you're just acting. You have to understand. Don't fool yourself. Don't think that that's really real love. Real love of God means that you have really reasons and you feel it. You really feel it. Right? If they would tell the same actor that, there was an accident on the set and it was really a tractor and the person that got run over was really your father, he would go crazy. Oh, that's good. That's good. Take that. Let's do it again. Right? Take that again. This time we'll run over his mother. So you did an excellent job that time, right? In other words, being genuine. It could be that people who are actors, they know how to act better than the people do that are genuine. Could be. I don't know. The fact of the matter is God, to act like you love God, okay. If you have no other choice, then do it. At least it's a preparation. You're in the right direction. But you have to know you're only acting. A person, when he really appreciates that God is creating me, and that God is creating all the upper worlds, and even more, in this physical world, there is potentially more revelation of God. Here you can do the commandments. Here you can change yourself and get to the essence of God. It says then they'll have Mesirut Nefesh, what's called total self-devotion, and not just devoting your body. Then you can draw down Ein Sof Asoviv Lamata Bil. This is only by means of Torah and the commandments. And that's what it means, that by means of Torah and the commandments, the Jews get out of exile. That's what it says, that these words, that I command you, Misha Anochi, Atzmuto, God's essence, Mitzavacha, command, Lashon, Hitkashrus. The word command in Hebrew is the same word for attachment. Tzavacha is like a tzevet, tzvat, the Hitkashrut. Not just the name and the glory of God's kingship that's above us. When you do a commandment, that you are connecting yourself with God hayom, right now when you're doing it. V'lo machar, not tomorrow. What's tomorrow? After you die, in heaven. She'enu rak l'kabel schar. In heaven, you just receive a reward. When you think deeply about this every day, you have to think about it. Is this really real? If you think about it and you realize that it really is real, and that God is not only creating you, but when you do a commandment, that connects you with God's essence, not just God's kingship. When you think about this every day, then the Torah and the commandments will be brand new every day, because you're actually doing it. It's not just theoretic. Because this world, you can draw down the essence of God, which is not the case after a person goes to heaven. Look in Parshas Pinchas. And therefore, they're called the commandments. The commandments are called the 248 limbs of the king. 248, connections of life that come down from God's will into the world. Like, for instance, a hand. When your hand moves, who's moving your hand? You're moving your hand. It's not your hand moving. You are moving, right? You pick up a piece of stone. You're picking it up. It's not. You can't say, no, my hand picked it up. My hand threw the stone. I didn't throw the stone. If you can prove a person is, he's spastic or something's wrong with him, he's out of control, then okay, he's got a point. But usually when a person picks up something with its hand, it's he's doing it. It's not somebody else doing it. It's not his hand that's doing it. The same thing, the commandments. When you do a commandment, this is God himself putting on the tefillin. Like an aver, like a limb. Sheyesh bo gid v'almoch. The limbs have blood, have nerves from the brain, and in these nerves come will, and the will from the brain. A person makes the decision, so his will comes through the nerves, and it makes the hand move according to what a person wants. Bezeu, that's all. That's what it means, loving God. What does it mean, loving God? Liot, because Hashem Elokecha, that God is your energy, He's your life. The revelation of God in the two sides of your heart. Elokecha, in the two sides of your heart. B'chal levavecha, I'm sorry. You have to love God with all of your heart. Chalal samoli, the left side of your heart means that you will love God and it'll come out in a way of bitterness. What do you mean bitterness? Bitterness that you're so far away from God, that I am so far away from God. I feel bitter. And the chalal yamini, that means all of your heart. You will love God with all of your hearts, it says, levavvecha. That the left side of your heart, so to speak, will be activated to be negative about negative things, about bad things. I got to get out of here. And the right side of your heart is joy. Joy in doing the commandments. Yismach Yisrael ba'osav. That the Jewish people is happy in their Creator and in their deeds. These are the commandments. Shenitlabshu ba'asiyah. So in other words, what's the Rebbe saying? How can we really feel that the Torah is brand new in the commandments? You have to think. You have to think. And thinking is not just enough. It's not just like thinking like you're thinking about some idea to say. You have to, it's called hitbonanut. It has to be close to your heart. In other words, you're trying to solve a problem. The problem is God is everywhere. The Rebbe says He's everywhere. And I don't feel it. Right? I don't feel it at all. That's a big problem. How do I feel it? How do I feel God? So He says, well, listen, God is creating me. Do you really feel that? No. Why don't you feel it? God is creating you. You don't feel it. You have another problem. Think deeply. Maybe you're not really thinking genuinely. I am looking Sefer Shel Benoni, Sof Perek Lamed Daled, but Kol Sheti Amarirus, and the more that a person is bitter about being far from God, Meheder Azay Ye'ach, then there'll be more joy. Right? You sit down and you think about God, and I'm going to think about God. All of a sudden the cellular phone rings, and you turn off your cellular phone. You think, oh, I forgot to talk to Shlomo. I wanted to do this. Oh, I have to do this. Right? And he's thinking about, I can't think about God. I'm not thinking about anything. What's going to be with the government, with this, with the corona. There's a million thoughts. Why am I thinking about these stupid things? I want to love God. What do you care about loving God? I want to get rid of that thought. Why am I saying that it's not important? Not important. Where did that thought come from? It's not important. You start to feel bitter. You start to be, I got to stop thinking these stupid thoughts. I have to stop doing these stupid things. I have to start getting serious. Let me think 1 second about what reality really is. Right? What is really reality? That you're bitter. And then after that, once you have that bitterness and you say, I'm not going to be lazy anymore, and I'm not going to be egotistical anymore, and I'm not going to be angry, I'm not going to think about these other stupid things. Let me just think about God for 1 minute, for 10 seconds, just thinking about God. That God is creating me, God is creating all the worlds, this world is infinitely distant from Him, God is infinitely close to God, the commandments. Think about that. When you actually do think, and you think reality, then there's a tremendous joy. From the revelation of Or Ein Sof by means of doing the commandments. You're actually doing it. Even though there's no revelation now, la'atid, in the future there will be. That's what it means. That's what it means, that we plant charity, it grows up salvation. Salvation is a gematria of 375 different types of light. This is like a person that he has a big chest that's filled with diamonds and rubies and precious things, and he's tremendously happy. Right? You're a good friend of yours, opens up this box, look at this, you have these diamonds and rubies, but I'm closing it, I'm locking it up. I don't want anybody to get to it. It'll open up in another few, don't worry about it. But it's yours. You're happy with it. Me'od. Av she'enu roa, even though he doesn't see them. Kihem segurim b'teva. Even if it's close, the same thing is godliness will feel it's everywhere. And even though it's not revealed, in the time of the Moshiach, godliness will be revealed. But now it's not revealed, but nevertheless we can still be happy when we do the commandment. We feel inside of this commandment it's like a treasure chest. That inside of it is pure godliness, and it's mine. I'm connecting myself to the Creator. That's what gives this tremendous happiness. This is what will redeem the Jewish people and rebuild Zion. That's true Zionism. Zion means doing the commandments and revealing God in the world. This awakens the Jewish souls, as we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Okay, let's just do this. One moment.